to ICICIdirect. Joining us today is a very special guest, Prateek Pant, Chief Business Officer at WhiteOak Capital Mutual Fund. After having run a very successful PMS-EIF, WhiteOak is now forayed into the mutual fund space with WhiteOak Capital Flexi Cap Fund. Prateek, thanks for joining us on the show. This is a big one. WhiteOak services will now be available to retail investors with your foray into mutual funds. Congratulations on this first NFO. Could you kindly elaborate and tell us a little bit more about the NFO and the specific scheme?
Sure. Thanks, Samina. Thanks for inviting us over. So yes, it is a very, in the journey of a asset management company within a short period of 5 years from inception to actually have a mutual fund license must be one of the shortest time to market for any financial, for any asset management business. So this NFO, as you rightly said, is a Flexi Cap Fund, right? And by definition, a Flexi Cap Fund is one which can, invest across market capitalizations. So to put it a lot more simple, right? You have the top 100 companies, which are large cap companies. The next 150 companies in terms of size, market cap, are known as mid cap companies. And beyond that is really the small cap companies. Typically, most of the categories in which, the regulator allows you to invest, there are some constraints, in which you can construct portfolios. The Flexi Cap Fund is probably the only one of those categories of funds where the fund manager does not have any constraints, can invest across different market capitalizations. He can also invest across different styles, right? And like you have growth biases, value biases, alpha seeking. So you have many of those combinations, but here there are no biases in which you actually construct the portfolio. And you could also construct portfolios across different sectors.
Prateek, what is the scheme category-wise allocation across market cap spectrum?
Yeah, so as I said, typically, a flexi cap by nature is flexible market capitalization, right? So we will invest between large cap, mid cap, and small cap. It's 0 to 100, 0 to 100, 0 to 100, right? So depending on, and then we can talk about that in a lot more detail, but depending on how we look at the security selection, the investment process, which is there, that will help us in determining what type of allocation we would do into large cap, into mid cap and small cap without any biases.
Prateek, this is a tough market to navigate, and it's very tough for investors, especially retail investors, to identify which segment of the market is going to lead and when it does really. In your opinion, what are the key benefits of investing in a Flexi Cap fund? Because I believe a lot of the onus and the work is now done by the fund manager, and that identification process is largely what the fund manager will now do. And hence this fund makes a good sort of way to participate, you think, for retail investors?
Sure. So the advantage, as you rightly said, right, it is very tough for a retail investor to do that level of research to understand which segment of the market should the investor be investing in, right? Or which stocks should they be buying? And that's why you come to a professional manager like us who would be able to construct this type of a portfolio. So the benefits of a Flexi Cap fund is the flexibility to actually invest across these market capitalizations, a balanced portfolio, right? You don't want to be on one side of the market if growth does well or value does well. So you have a portfolio which has both cyclical stocks, as well as counter cyclical stocks. So which can be stable across different market capitalizations. And finally, as I said, there's diversification across sectors, right? So you could have exposure to some of the top companies across IT, financials, consumer, and so on and so forth. So that's the advantage of being in a Flexi Cap fund.
Prateek, the Flexi Cap space as such is probably the most populated in the mutual fund space. There are enough and more asset management companies that have a proven track record already in this space. Now, this is your foray into the industry of mutual fund, and it comes with Flexi Cap. Tell me, what are your USPs? What are the benefits of this WhiteOak Flexi Cap Fund? I really want to understand in terms of what should a retail investor be looking at and why should they be looking to invest in your fund?
Sure. Thanks for asking this question. A lot of people think that we are a new asset management company, but as you just said some time back, right? WhiteOak Capital comes with a certain pedigree. We've been managing India-based funds now for more than 5 years and have a great track record. Our founder Prashant Khemka, in fact, has more than 2 decades of investing into India. Earlier, he was a CIO for Goldman Sachs for both India as well as emerging market, and has a stellar track record of delivering outperformance through his market cycles. Also, not lot many people know, but WhiteOak actually runs a mutual fund through its offshore business, right? Where we have a fund which is listed in Dublin, which is available for overseas investors who want to invest into India. And it's a fairly large fund, which is about $1.4 billion in size. It's called Ashoka India Fund, has a great track record, a great pedigree out there. We've been running PMS strategies in a Flexi Cap mandate in India for more than 3 years now, and again have a demonstrated track record. In fact, one very unique thing about WhiteOak, Samina, which one should know, is that very rarely would you find a team of investment professionals who have been given an asset management company license to actually run mutual funds, right? You'll see corporate houses, you'll see broking companies, banking companies, and so on and so forth. For us, our DNA is of an investment company, right? And that's why we have a 35-member investment team today, even as we launch our first mutual fund. So I guess all of these reasons make WhiteOak a very, very compelling group.
Indeed, Prateek, I would agree with you on that one. Let's talk about the investment philosophy now. What is the fund manager's investment philosophy? We've talked about the category-wise allocations, but in terms of ideology, can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. We've got this whole byline which we've been talking about, right? The whole art and science of investing. The important thing is to understand science, right? When I talk about what our own track record has been, it should be a certain process which determines, and our investment philosophy is about investing in great businesses at attractive values. Now, I'm sure Samina will say, everyone says the same thing, right? So what is so different? I guess the detailing is really on execution, right? It's like, if I had to tell you, for having what is important to be healthy in life, right? The important things are you need to sleep well, you need to eat well, you need to have a sound mind, basically, right? I mean, those are things which go into it. I mean, all of us know about it, but still when people get up in the morning, they're not having a glass of orange juice, but they're actually going and having a cup of tea or coffee or something like that. So when we define great businesses, Samina, we actually say, what are the attributes of these great businesses we look at, right? The attributes for us, number one, is superior return on incremental capital. And incremental is an important thing. It's not about what they've made in the past, these businesses, but incrementally, if I had to give these companies money, how would they do? And that's why our model is more on the basis of future cash flow rather than past profitabilities of these businesses. We believe in companies with scalable long-term opportunities. You'll find a lot of companies which could be profitable today, doing very well today, right? The famous Nokia case, extremely good company at a point of time, but was there a scalable long-term opportunity? Did they see disruption coming through? Finally, what is very important is strong execution and governance. And there's no black or white when it comes to, there's no shades of gray when it comes to governance, sorry. There's, clearly companies which are governed well and have a very strong execution DNA, right? So that's how we really define some of these great businesses. And for us, our valuation models are all based on cash flows rather than looking at historical values like price earnings, price to book. We actually think some of these things are misleading because they talk about what's happened in the past, but don't give you a peek into the future. We've got a proprietary trademark for valuation called the Opco Finco framework. We actually look at how future cash flows can be valued on the operating side of the business rather than capital side of the business. So there's a lot which has gone into the whole philosophy of investments, and that's really what differentiates us as an investment manager which will hold its ground over different market cycles.
Prateek, let's talk about the investor now, because all investors are different. And now you're foraying into a much larger audience as we speak, at least in India. Keeping different objectives in mind, we've always maintained that it's never one size fits all.
Sure.
So in your opinion, what investor or what sort of attributes should an investor be looking for that should be looking to invest in your fund? So what I really want to get at is who should invest in this fund?
Yeah, I actually think a product like this is a core part of an equity, allocation to anybody's portfolio, right? Let's take, we always say the eighth wonder of the world is power of compounding.
Yeah.
Right. And compounding is a very easy thing to understand, but very difficult to implement, right? What compounding means is basically if you're growing at 12.5, 13%, your money is going to double every 5 years, right? And if it doubles every 5 years, so in 5 years your money is 2x, in 10x it's 4x, but in 15x it's 15 years it's 8x, right? So I mean that whole ability to last that distance with equity as an asset class is very important. And Flexi Cap funds are core part of that equity allocation. So first time young investor out of college, first job, definitely should be looking at that, right? Because this is something which will give you capital appreciation opportunities over a much longer period of time. This is also important for investors who are not wanting to get stuck to thematic ideas, right? Because let's understand this. Last year, IT sector was a favorite. First 6 months, IT sector has just fallen off the cliff, right? So a fund like this actually diversifies across all market caps, across all sectors, and does not try to time a market. Hence, that the famous ad which was there, fill it, shut it, forget it. This is that product which will give you that core equity allocation. And after that, you just need to keep reviewing your portfolio every year to see how that's doing.
Right. Prateek, we've covered quite a few attributes of the fund, but if there's anything we've missed out, any key features that you want to highlight of the scheme for our investors and viewers?
Sure. So as a fund house, I think what we've also decided to do, we're doing this even though we're launching our first product, is that investors who are looking to come in through the systematic investment plan or SIPs as they are known. So we've created goal SIPs for investors who have got goals in mind, right?
Yeah.
We have other different versions of SIPs, which can, where when markets come down, your installments can go high and things like that, flexi SIPs and things like, so we have multiple features within the SIP bucket, which is there for investors to ensure that they can take advantage and ride the volatility, as well as, work towards their longer term goals. So I think those would be fairly interesting features for young investors who would want to come and create a 10-year, 20-year portfolio with WhiteOak Capital.
That's quite a leap, because that makes the whole sort of job of investing so much easier. I know we don't usually recommend timing the market, but sort of curating the way you invest is also going to be beneficial for retail investors.
The applications could be submitted online through the facility which is there. And, as you said, it's a fund not to be missed.
Well, good luck. Lots in the offering. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to never miss an update from ICICIdirect.